welcome to episode 5 of Voice India. These are a series of podcasts and videos that we are doing to inform, engage, and entertain our viewers. If you're curious about voice technology, if you want to understand what voice platforms have on offer for you, and if you want to learn how to create your first branded experience on a voice platform, you've come to the right place. My name is Preeti Prakash and I'm your host. Today, I'm going to be in conversation with an expert from the field of voice technology. His name is Sreeraman Thiagarajan. He is the co-founder and CEO of India's first voice agency, Agrahyah Technologies. Welcome to the show, Sri.
Hi Preeti, hello everyone.
So today, Sri, we're going to be talking about how marketers can go about designing a memorable, engaging, and interesting voice experience that will actually drive consumers to interact with their brand on a brand new platform. So what do you have in store for us on today's episode?
In today's episode, we'll talk about the different roles voice assistant plays in users' life, how you could match this to suit your brand personality. We will talk about strategies for brands to get started, and we will have different use cases followed by some examples from India and abroad.
So first things first, Sri, could you please tell us what are the different roles or avatars that a voice assistant can take on?
Voice assistant is foremost a helper. It's called as an assistant, a AI-enabled smart assistant. That's what voice assistants are. So it helps us get things done in real life, in virtual life. So that's the strongest persona of voice assistant, followed by a storyteller. It can tell you stories, it can walk you through something, it can instruct you on something, so it can be a storyteller. And then comes, of course, entertainer. It can give you jokes, it can give you podcast, it can give you music. Voice assistants are also like an gopher or a automator, RPA. It can automate small tasks. You can say at 6 p.m. turn off my lights. It will remember that and it will turn it off. Or it can even help you automate a lot of things. If you have a smart home, bunch of smart home devices, you can connect them all and you can automate them. So these are all the different roles a voice assistant plays in user's life.
Okay, so now that we've spoken about the different roles or avatars that a voice assistant plays, can you tell me a little about how a brand can take advantage of this? What kind of experiences can a brand design that suit their personality and suit the role that an assistant is capable of playing?
Sure, Preeti. Every marketer knows that brands have personalities too. They have archetypes. A brand can be a joker, a brand can be an entertainer, a brand can be a friend. So whatever the existing archetype you already have for your brand, you could match that on voice assistant, and that's fairly easy to do.
So Shri, how do I make my brand stand out on a voice platform?
Great question, Preeti. A brand name alone isn't enough. You have a logo, you have typeface, you have color schemes, you have formats and templates of how your brand identity looks like, and you maintain consistency on that in the real life. Now, in the voice space, you could do something similar. You can get started with an audio signature or a sonic identity. When you hear the sounds of Britannia or Intel, it's so memorable. Recently the Guardian newspaper created a sonic identity saying it's very important to create their brand presence for their target demographics. So creating a sonic identity is one step to differentiate.
Right. So creating a sonic identity or an identifiable audio mnemonic is one way that a brand can differentiate itself on a voice platform. What else can a brand do to kind of, stand apart and draw the consumer's attention?
Sonic identity is just a part of it. It's like your logo, your sound logo or music logo, SOGO, MOGO, whatever the jargons are for it. Now, voice assistants offers us two different things in designing your brand experience. One is called as TTS or text to speech. When you create a conversational experience, let's say I'm a salt brand and I'm creating recipes around food, it could be in the voice of Google Assistant where it will tell you add one spoon salt and 1 spoon turmeric, etc., etc. So now it's built in the voice of Google Assistant itself. But imagine I want to do a one-up on this. Then comes something called as VO or voiceover. Let's say I rope in a popular chef, a Ranveer Brar or a Sanjeev Kapoor, and I want the entire recipe experiences in their voices. So when somebody says, how do I create dal khichdi, imagine the experience, the recipe is completely spoken in the voice of a Sanjeev Kapoor. So that's going to be really interesting, and you could customize this a lot more. You could have pauses in between, they could share some anecdotes in between, or when you say things like set a timer for 3 minutes, Google Assistant can actually come in between, set the timer and resume the recipe or the step-by-step cooking after those 3 minutes. There's a lot of way in which you could differentiate your brand in voice space by taking advantage of these two elements. Either it's a text to speech, easy and quick to start, or if you want a completely differentiated experience, use voiceover.
Okay, so that's a great way to think about it. Text to speech and voiceover are two different approaches to differentiating your brand experience. Do you have any other tips for us, Sri? I want to use a terrible pun and say I'm all ears.
One of my favorite example in the recent past is how Paytm has this sound box. The small merchants or crowded stores, they're all really busy, one or two entrepreneurs running the whole store, and Paytm has placed the smart speaker boxes, and when somebody transfers money, it makes the till sound, right? So the shopkeeper knows the money has been received. I think even MasterCard is working on something like this, where there are different sounds that come basis transaction success, transaction failure, or being processed. And even the Didi, the Uber of China, even they have come up with audio-based signatures and mnemonics, where you don't have to look, constantly on your phone to understand if your cab has arrived or not.
Okay, so that is such a thoughtful feature. It seems to have been designed with people like me in mind. I'm constantly rushing about just like seconds before the cab is about to arrive. So I'd really appreciate not having to look at my phone and know that it's about to, be at my door. Isn't that an example of using the temporal setting on voice? This is something that you had spoken about in the previous episodes, Sri, catering to people in their context.
Right. The temporal setting, or in plain English, the context, what is your user doing before interacting with your bot, or during their interaction, or after, what was their mindset, what was their mood, what would they need, all of this collectively becomes the temporal setting.
Being contextually aware of where the user is at is super important. What are some other ways in which a voice experience can be customized to suit consumer expectations?
Preeti, another way to do this would be to create a mascot or a personality on voice assistant. If your brand already has, let's say, Amul Girl, you could bring her to life in voice assistant. Captain Morgan, it sounds like a great brand mascot, right? So imagine recipes in Captain Morgan's voice, or there is this cough syrup called Mucinex, and the mascot is Mr. Mucus.
Yeah, Mr. Mucus does sound yucky in the beginning, but I've actually watched the ads and they're very cute and memorable and funny. Earlier in the episode 3, you'd spoken about Chef Sanjeev Kapoor and Chef Ranveer Brar and personalities like that, potentially lending their voice to brands on voice platforms. So could you talk a little about how brands are leveraging the power of celebrities?
Google Maps is coming up in the voice of Amitabh Bachchan. Can you imagine Amitabh Bachchan giving you turn-by-turn examples?
That sounds like a memorable experience. Hearing Mr. Bachchan's booming baritone will certainly catch my attention. Do you have any other examples for me in this space?
Yeah, rapper Snoop Dogg is really popular and he's got a very unique voice and unique name. Diageo has used him to give cocktail recipes and fun way of fixing your own drink, etc. So it's a really nice way of using a celebrity's voice to create a differentiated experience on voice.
Snoop Dogg recommending cocktails sounds like an experience that is going to be lit. But can you also tell me what brands can do without customization to this extent? What can they do if they just stick to the default voice offered by platforms?
Not everything has to be a voiceover, bring in a celebrity. People do appreciate swift, quick, practical responses. Let's say transactional, that your money has been processed or pizza is on the way. Things like that. It needs quick, fast responses. So text to speech is good enough. Do remember, in text to speech, there is something called as SSML. Like, you could add words like balle balle or shava shava, things like that. You could code those words in the text to speech as well. So imagine a transaction is complete, you want to say sabash, your transaction has been completed. Google Assistant can still do that.
Now, Shri, the segment that I've been waiting for is here. I'm sure that our audience is also waiting to hear about use cases and inspiring examples of how other brands have leveraged the power of voice here in India and in the US. So, what are the most memorable and fun use cases you have to share with us today?
Marketers have to start by asking what kind of experience they want to build for their brand, and that comes from the brand archetype they already have. So is it going to be fun? Is it going to be formal? Is it going to be informal? Is it going to be, like a teacher or an authority? Any and all of this is possible, but let's start by some of the fun use cases.
What are some of the campaigns that have got your attention?
Insightful campaigns are everywhere. One thing that got my attention recently was Flipkart's Haggle bot. Indians love shopping and we love bargaining, but how do you do this in a voice space? So you could haggle with the Flipkart bot, and each one of us could get a different discount rates. So it's up to you on how well you could haggle. Fun use case, right?
Okay, so that sounds like a voice experience my mom would love. She'd probably ask the assistant to give her free dhania and mirch. But do you have any more fun use cases on voice for us?
I do. An iconic brand from India, the Royal Enfield, has huge, crazy fan following, and they used it well on voice by creating, a product reveal contest. Now, we all love contests. It's fun and engaging. So hours before their product launch, people had to say, talk to Royal Enfield twins, and then they had to guess the price range. Now, the marketers got a lot of responses, but they could also benchmark, at what price points people are comfortable buying this product. And the brand managers say their engagement was 3 times higher compared to other promotional platforms. Now, that's another fun use case where you also got insights from your audience.
Royal Enfield and Flipkart have already leveraged the power of creating interactive experiences on voice with a fun contest and a shopping experience. Shri, can you tell us how brands are leveraging the other core features that an assistant offers?
Voice assistant can be contextually relevant and helpful, just when you need it. Zyrtec is an allergy medication. What they did was, created a voice experience called Daily Allergy Cast. Now, that has mapped out, pollens, allergens, wind speed, etc., location by location, and it will help you if you need to reach out to that medicine. And just like how people ask for weather info, they could ask about allergy info and be well prepared and have a better chance at fighting this non-stop allergy problems that we all face.
I can relate to that because I have seasonal allergies all year round. I would certainly check in every day and figure out what the allergy cast is for my location. Earlier in the episode 3, you spoke about how a voice assistant can take on the role of an authority figure. Can you give me an example of how a brand has, explored this aspect of a voice assistant?
Right. Brands have this opportunity to have 100% share of voice on voice assistants because it's new and brands can enjoy a lot of first mover advantage. In SEO, we call this as position 0 or rank 0. So this is possible in voice, provided you are able to give a authoritative and a verified information out there. So let's say, you're a toothpaste brand. In fact, Colgate did create this called as Pocket Dentist, aimed at, non-metro regions where the number of dentists available for the density of population was very low. And this is really useful because it's coming from Colgate, a well-established brand, a authoritative brand in the dental hygiene space. So that's really useful. Now, you could be any brand. You could be automotive. You could be a femcare brand. You could be, food. You could be any brand, and look at the expertise you bring to table. And if you could build that as a conversational experience, there is a chance that you would enjoy 100% share of voice. What I mean by that is, when I say, okay, Google, tell me about best practices for brushing teeth, the handoff could happen, according to Colgate, something, right? So the Google Assistant picks up the information that's available as Colgate action on Google. Now, that is deep linking, and those are all possible technologies out there today. And it's up to the brand to take advantage of this and start building their voice presence.
That's a great insight you've shared with us, Shri. Can you talk a little about how a voice assistant can be an entertainer or a storyteller?
this is also in the fun space, but look, entertainment cuts across any clutter. Now you could create music and podcast as a series for your audience. Tata Mutual Fund did this. They wanted to educate their users in B30 markets, Hindi speaking regions. So they created this entire podcast series called Ishq Bhi Risk Bhi, and they popularized it on Voice. So now that's a nice way of entertaining your audience while also plugging in your brand message to it. There's also a lot of voice actions out there that targets children. I know it has interactive stories. There's something called Canvas on Google, using which you could build interactive audiobooks, storybooks. So these are all fun ways to engage your audience.
I've also heard that jokes are super popular on voice platforms. Is there a brand that has taken advantage of that?
Yeah, there is KFC that gives you chicken jokes while you're waiting for your order. So if your brand personality fits it, go for a bunch of jokes, and you could make it available on voice ecosystem.
And what about the future? How does the future look in terms of smart homes with multiple interconnected devices? How does a voice assistant fit into that?
Purvankara developers in Bangalore have a project where Google Home comes pre-installed in the home, and you could control all the appliances in your home with voice. Now that is birth of smart home, smart living, right? So this is also role and functionality of a voice assistant to make your life easier, because it is smart and helps you get things done.
So you've seen how voice can be a storyteller and entertainer. It's changing people's lives. It's making people's lives easier. It's reducing friction during everyday tasks. But Sri, could you tell us a little about how voice is enabling education or enabling learning?
Education use cases on voice is very profound. One of my favorite is Bolo app that Google made for India and exported it to the world. I've spoken about it in the past, but there's another beautiful product called Hello English, where people have to conversationally speak English to the bot in the app, and then it will correct you, help you learn English better. Now this is really uplifting and plays the role of an educator or a teacher in people's life.
That's really amazing, because I know that in India we all learn English in school to read and write, but a lot of people may not be proficient in conversational English. So it's amazing that voice is actually enabling them to learn to speak English more confidently. Can you tell us, if I've already built my voice experience as a marketer or a brand, how can I actually make it popular? How can I tell people that a voice experience exists and make sure that people actually use the experience that I've created?
Yeah, Preeti, sure. In my experience, I've seen that many brands build a conversational experience, but they don't market it well. I think that goes against the grain of marketing. So promotion is very important for discovery. You could do it with existing means and media vehicles that you have. For example, organically you could promote it on social media, or if you're a product company, have it on your packaging saying, just ask Google. You could use paid targeted campaigns with deep links. Let's say consumer clicks on the link on their phone, it leads them right inside the conversational experience and gives them the answer in a conversational way. So there are many ways to promote your conversational experience that you have built for your brand, and it's really fun. And guess what? All the interactions people are having with you, there's a good amount of analytics and insights that you get. So that kind of helps you, in fact, to refine it further and build better experiences as you go along.
So of course, these are all great examples, Sri, on how brands have managed to make a difference by embracing the power of voice. And there's a lot to be said in being an early adopter in this space. It's a great way to get noticed by your consumers and get ahead of competition. So if you are a marketer, you work for an agency, it's time to probably start evangelizing voice to your clients and telling them about the value that it can bring to their business. And on the other hand, if you are a brand custodian or business owner yourself, you should certainly start thinking about how you can create voice experiences that consumers will actually use and remember. And if you can think about voice being more than just a PRable activity or a promotional quick fix, you can derive so much more value out of voice.
Do join us for the upcoming Voice Talks India webinar in December.
You heard Sri. Voice Talks India will be back with another webinar chock full of insights, and you can hear from industry leaders and voice influencers who are rapidly changing this ecosystem. So make sure that you stay tuned for more updates on that event date. And thanks so much, Sri, for being here with us today. This was an absolutely fun, delightful, and informative conversation as always.
Thank you so much.
So if this is the first time that you're tuning in, let me give you a little bit of context. Voice Talks India is an absolutely free community that we are building, and everybody is free to join. So if you're a developer, if you're a brand custodian, if you're an original content creator, you represent a marketing agency, or you represent a brand, you should certainly consider signing up. It's absolutely free, and become a part of the Voice Talks India ecosystem. Once you become a part of the ecosystem, we're going to send you newsletters. You're going to hear about our upcoming events. We have a second event scheduled to happen very soon. So watch this space for more information about the theme and the date of that webinar that's coming up. So this brings us to the close of episode number 5. Make sure that you check out the previous episodes. And thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is me, Preeti Prakash, your host, signing off.